All right, welcome to the Card Show Live Theater. Card Show Live, we're at the Great Lakes Collectors Convention, powered by Greeny Sports Cards, right? We're in the collectibles on SI, like sponsoring this theater, and I'm a writer for them. Like, what are those odds? Right? But yeah, we're here in this incredible auditorium with so many collectors here in Cleveland. And joining us right away is, the ones that put on the show. Greeny himself, Jeremy, and then we have a great guest from the Shipshawana show, Brad Beeman, right? We're going to discuss, a lot of different topics dealing with card shows and what goes into them, right? Because there's a lot. There's a lot that goes into the card shows that people just don't know. It's more than just, someone asking for a table, setting up, and everything else like that. So we do want to, talk about our sponsors for the whole show, right? SGC, TNT Sports, Big Blue Rock, their supporting media partner, Sports Radio, The Fan, 92.3. But let's get into discussion, right? So, Brad, right? Shipshawana show. Talk a little bit how it is in, picking a location is important.
Yeah, I mean, so important. And it's a lot of it's the obvious things that you would think about, right? Like, is this space conducive to people walking through it? Does the venue, I always say is a huge thing people don't think about, does the venue provide tables? If you can find a venue that provides tables, it's a huge win because they're very expensive, as Greeny will tell you, to rent and to have set up for you and all that kind of thing. So any advantage you can gain from picking a venue like this one that's wide open, no beams in the way, no pillars in the way, just a beautiful space to have a show. And then the thing I'm super jealous about this space is the parking.
Yeah, you said first thing you when you came in and you saw me, you said the parking was incredible,
Yep.
and then the high ceilings.
Yes.
Right, the high ceilings.
Yeah, I always think just the high ceilings are just conducive to making an already huge show look even bigger. And then obviously with parking, I've never been blessed to pick a venue that had too much parking. So to see the parking that's here is amazing, and it's a great scout by Greeny and his team because it's super comfortable to park, walk right in here. And those are the things you're looking for. It's just a really good guest experience so that they don't think, man, I really love that show, but do I want to go back because it was a nightmare to park or it was a nightmare to get through those aisles. You want to have a comfortable space to do a show in and one the dealers and the collectors enjoy.
And I would say, possibly even, the relationships you have with people, in your city, in your town, and everywhere else, that probably goes into a little bit for your locations, right?
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of venues that your relationships dictate whether you can afford to be there, right? Or do they have the right equipment? We got so lucky with this building, and putting a show on, a sports collector show in a sports facility, right? We have the basketball hoops, we have scoreboards, we have the netting, for batting cages. So there's the luckiness that we found in this building has been terrific. And knowing people in the city as well, the Greater Cleveland Sports Commission, and they're citywide, right? And they help out. The City of Independence has been terrific with us. I mean, there's a lot of things to be fortunate about when you find the right place. And Brad will say it. I mean, in Shipshawana, I mean, you have a great relationship with the building there. There are some people that they try really hard, and convention centers are great, but those are really, really expensive, right? So being able to find someone that you have a great relationship and they want to work with you is even better.
Yeah, so Jeremy, talk a little bit about budgeting, right? Let's go into the budgeting aspect of a card show, like stuff you have to buy, rent, and everything else like that. Give us a little bit of, insight to some of these shows, what you got to do for that aspect.
Yeah, it's a great question because there are so many moving parts on these things, literally and figuratively. And at the end of the day, I don't think any of us are in the nonprofit business. You want to make money at it. You want your efforts to have some, fruition. And there's a lot that goes into it, and there's a lot of stakeholders. So you have, the vendors themselves. You have the attendees, you have sponsors, and all those elements have to come in, and every one of those things has some sort of hard cost or relative cost to being able to figure that out. So when you start with the building, as these guys talked about, you've got building costs, you've got a budget for the building, you've got a budget for the elements that Steve referenced that go into a show that they might not have. Do they have tables and chairs? Do they have staging? Do they have the accessible parking? And then from there, what do the utilities look like? And is there concessions and food and beverage? And what do the restrooms look like? So there's a lot of things that go into that. And then you sort of have to start filling in the holes of what's missing. Do you need audio visual? In this case, you need security. There's a lot of money on this floor, both in merchandise and product in exchange. So you have to pay attention to those things. So you line out a P&L and you really start to go through and identify the areas that need cost. And as you develop partner relationships or sponsorships, there's costs that go along with that as a part of the investment. And so when you really start to lay all those things out, you kind of work back from there. What do you want the vision to look like? What is affordable within that vision? And what is a sound investment?
Yeah. You talked about security, right? Security at shows. That's a big thing. Big thing these days with, theft and everything else. Like on Collectibles on SI, I actually wrote an article on security at shows. I do a lot of stuff with the Philly show in that area, and there's been a lot of stuff that came out of there. So, talking with the team there and everything, I got their insight on, being able to rent out a safe or, putting more security in the parking lot or walking, the show floor and keeping people, undercover so you don't even know there's security, right? Your show out in Shipshewana, Brad, everyone knows it's the middle of nowhere, right? Talk about the security aspect for a show like that. Like, is there any extra stuff that you guys do out there for
Yeah, I mean, it's super important in the environment, and obviously we could all recite the stories that we see that's happened. And I won't name the shows because I don't always think it's fair to name the shows where it happened because we all try our best.
Yep, 100%.
And I will say this, and I'm not trying to put it back on the dealer, but it starts with the dealer and just going through your checklists of how many cards have I brought out of my case? Am I putting all my cards in a case? So many things they can do as the front line defense, but I think as show promoters, we are responsible to provide the safest environment that's possible.
Yeah.
So for us, we started out as a 44 table show. We're over 400 tables now. So security has grown with that, and we do everything from private security. I think private security is great. I think they are a little more zealous about making sure badges and entrances, they're very detail oriented. They're used to doing that type of work at events and restaurants. But I also think your local police, if they're willing to come out and you're willing to pay them, obviously, they have that higher level of authority where if something happens, they can definitely take care of the situation. So I think there's just a mixture of, do I need private security at my event? Do I need, the local law enforcement to be there if I can? I would say yes to both if you can get both, depending on the size, right? I think we all know if we go to a 40 table show, it's probably you're just on your own. But once you get to a certain table level, I do think there's a responsibility there. And if you can find a venue that has cameras, that's very tricky. It's hard enough to find a venue to put a show in that's large.
Yeah.
You hope that venue has cameras. Our new venue does. I will tell you, after our first show at Shipshewana, we had one incident, and the gentleman was in an area that was just a little bit, wasn't as close to his camera as we would like. And I was talking to the building about it, the guy who runs the building, and he said, you know what, we're gonna put in some 360 cameras in that area. We didn't realize we had that hole. So there's a lot of that. There's a lot of working with the building to see what they'll do to step up to help you. Some won't. Some will just say it is what it is. But there's multi-levels to it. I didn't do the greatest job of breaking it down, but I just think dealer has a responsibility. And as a show grows into a multi-table show, hundreds of tables, I think there's a definite promoter responsibility to do all you can as well.
Yeah, and it's good. It's good that doing these shows in these buildings helps them even advance even more, right? You said like they're now getting 360 cameras because of the instance that they saw that they had a blind spot in and everything else like that. So Greeny, I mean, you're a lot of your shows are in these more populated areas. Like, what do you have anything else to add to
No, I mean, Brad's absolutely right. That we've talked and discussed buying a camera system if there was a venue that didn't have it. Right. In this gym, I mean, I can look around and there's I don't know how many. There's a bunch of them in here, but like, we do a show in Broadview Heights, which is an event center, and they have them. But yeah, it's funny when we were talking earlier about some of the things, and Jeremy mentioned the P&L. I mean, we've gone through a P&L at venues and just decided they weren't worth it. And, because cameras are one of the things, and security, not having the tables and chairs. But yeah, but to the security point, we've actually discussed, just buying a camera system for ourselves, and, relying on the venue too, but just to have your own added security. I think we will get there probably in this next year. We'll end up buying our own security system.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know. It's like these aren't bobbleheads; they're nanny cams.
That's right.
All over watching the show floor and stuff. So, what's even funnier is like you're talking about local police, and stuff like that, roaming around. One of our local shows in Richmond, there's a couple officers that were running the show that they were covering. They had Zion cases in their hands. Like they were walking the show at the same time that they're actually pulling the security, doing deals during the show. It was incredible to see. Like, and I was like, "Are you off?" He's like, "I technically am off, but I'm not. Like, I'm not supposed to tell you and everything." But that was pretty cool too, because there's so many collectors out there that you just don't know.
Yeah.
You just know, just because everyone gets in that mindset, right? They're in that realm. They only think it's these individuals. We're everywhere out there, but you just don't want to talk about it, right?
Well, and I always say too, card shows are a microcosm of the world. 99% of the people that will walk through here this weekend are amazing, loving, awesome people. 1% are just, and we got to do the best we can to guard against the 1%.
That's right. Yeah. One thing to add is if you look around at a lot of these booths, a lot of them have their own cameras.
Yep.
And maybe it's not so much for security per se because they're videoing content, but at the end of the day, they are security cameras. I mean, they all are taping this, so our cameras, the venue's cameras, and I would venture there's 20 booths out here that have cameras in them.
Yeah, but Brad said it right. It starts with yourself. Like you got to have your own. This is your stuff, right? You're bringing anywhere you go, anything you do, you're going to be dealing with your personal property. So you have to take control of it first before you want to blame it on anyone else or anything. Something happens. Take a little stuff. So, but going into finding, you go to so many avenues goes into putting into a show. Security is a huge aspect, but finding the venue first, right? That's got to be difficult. I mean, it's got to be difficult. In so many different shows that you do, helping out with the partnerships and friendships you have, all of a sudden someone can be like, "Oh, this place will be good." Well, guess what? They don't have anything available for the next 3 years, right? So many people come out with like, "Well, why don't you do a show here?" Jeremy, let's talk a little bit about what goes into you trying to schedule a show at a certain location.
Well, that's the first part of it, right? And by the way, Brad, if you see that 1% that's out here, let us know.
Yeah, I've had my eye out while you guys are talking. Don't worry.
We'll figure it out. But that really is the first thing. So the calendar, in the convention world and trade show world, these shows are booking 2-3 years out, sometimes 4 years out, depending on the location. If you have a more populated city like Chicago, Orlando, Vegas, those venues are being booked up many, many years in advance. So the combination and confluence of finding the right venue, the availability on the calendar, in this case, in this venue, we're beholden to when the school next door goes on spring break. So our dates every year are going to be locked into that. And so if we want to be in this venue, we have to live with those dates, despite what's going on, despite an NFL draft that's taking place this weekend, despite the Cleveland Cavaliers in the playoff. And so what we can do is kind of lean into those things when they happen. But that's the first piece. And then, the bookend to that, finding the venue and all those pieces that go into it, is then the marketing and promotions and amplification of the event. Because the concern as a promoter or producer is it's kind of like throwing a birthday party or a party for somebody, and you send out the invitations, and that's through radio and TV and social media and all those things, and print and word of mouth. You throw the party, you hope people are going to show up for it, and you just don't know until it happens. So you got to find the place, and then you got to tell people about it, and in between you got to provide enough content and an interest for people to come.
Yeah, and this is where, I've always preached the whole, respect others, be nice and stuff. This networking in this industry goes a long way, and people don't talk about that enough. right? And then that goes into that aspect of if you build it, they will come, because if you have those good relationships and you put something on the calendar, they're gonna come. And it seems like those bigger shows that happen year round, right? People flock to it for reasons, right? I've always also said, shows, depending on what it is, majority of them shouldn't be a destination type of show. This show here is for this area. Couple hour drive, being able to get to it and everything else like that, right? Yeah, you want dealers from around the country to probably come to your show because they're bringing stuff that's normally not here, right? You get bringing their stuff into this environment, right? But there's so many shows that happen every weekend. It's hard to not step on other people's toes. I know as promoters, you guys try as much as you can, right? But I see a lot of times it's the first one to put it out there, and then everyone else is working around you is the best case scenario. Like, you guys know every year spring break's happening during this time frame, so you're going to have the show here every year, right? So, let's talk a little bit about that, like the relationships you have with other promoters. I mean, we got multiple right here. Like, go a little bit of that. Like, how's that go?
Everybody can't talk to everybody. It's there's only 52 weekends, but there are a handful of us. Brad and I talk a lot. I got a call from Jeff Mayrose this week. I email with Jeff Roberts down in Nashville. Jeff Mayrose does the Midwest Monster amongst mini monsters and the Fisher. He does a lot. So there is a kind of a promoters network, I guess, that we do talk to each other. Even some of the West Coast. I mean, we talked to Cole from Arizona, and you try the best that you can to not stay away from other dates, because nobody owns a specific date.
Yeah.
But you try to do the best to kind of work together and say, this week is Shipshewana. 2 weeks we're going to go to Cleveland. Then we're going to go down to Louisville to Jeff Mayrose, then to Nashville, in Dallas. I mean, so if we try a little bit more, and we do, inevitably you're going to hit a show here or there, but there are quite a few people that do work together. And, the National is, when that is. The Chicago Sports Spectacular. There's some shows, Chantilly, that are locked. When those are every year, and you do your best to avoid them.
Yeah, so, the biggest thing these days is social media. I mean, it's the reason why I'm here, right? So, you have an incredible individual that you work with Ryan, and everything. So, let's talk a little bit about the social media aspect. How are you getting the word out to individuals? What other type of advertising you're doing, and it's actually you feel is being successful, right? What type of stuff are you seeing, Brad, that you feel is successful when it comes to social media?
Yeah, and I would be super interested to see what Greeny and Jeremy, what their percentages would be. I always feel like you get 80% of the people at the show through social media, and then that last 20% is your old-fashioned flyers at the card shop, flyers at other people's shows, like Greeny so graciously let me leave up front here, dip into radio advertising, that type of thing. But for me, I believe 85% of your crowd comes from just strategically using social media. Facebook, obviously the card groups. If you're in a card group around here, you'll see Greeny and Brad plaster those. You can tell he has a schedule, I have a schedule, and just being consistent with it. Because what you learn is social media algorithms are sometimes very friendly to you. Yeah. I'll give you an instance. I made a post, didn't even have my flyer on it, just had our logo, and it said, "We'll see you guys in Shipshewana on May 23rd, May 24th. But for those planning ahead, we will see you August 15th and August 16th." That's all it said. That post has gotten like 75,000 views. I posted my flyer before with a paragraph of everything, how awesome we were going to be, and it's gotten 1,500 views. So the algorithm is always friendly, so I always say you just got to have a system and a schedule so that you can catch a few of those that just go, viral's too strong of a word, but that just really hit very well in the algorithm, and you get out there. And then I still think it comes down to the flyers and every little thing, and that's what Greeny and his team do a very nice job. They cover probably better than we do. They cover every media that you can to get out there. And Ryan and I did a podcast recently, and we said, you owe that to your dealers. Like, there's guys in here, some guys are local, but some guys rented hotel rooms. They've got gas, they've got their inventory, they got their table fees. Whether it works or not, you owe it to them to do everything you can to get people here. And the last thing I'll say is just the partnership with Ryan. We partnered up with Ryan last fall, Card Collector 2. It's been eye-opening for me. I was a huge Facebook guy. And he said to me one day, he goes, you're not doing hardly any. He goes, you have a TikTok, you have an Instagram, but you're not doing much with it. And I'm like, well, I think you get your people through Facebook. He goes, you think that because you're in your mid-40s and that's your preferred social media. And I will say, just the views and the hits his video gets, and that's another thing, and I'll talk very briefly about it, but that's been eye-opening for me just recently about making sure you're exploring all the social media venues, even if it doesn't seem like. You are hitting different audiences. You are getting different generations of people by using those different mediums. And I guess the second thing was I've always been a static post type of person, probably because of my age, and that's what I like. And I would notice when I would post a video of the show, it didn't feel like it got the likes. But what I've learned through watching Ryan's content is those things just live. Those reels live out there forever. And so I guess it's a long way of saying, I think 80% of it's social media, 20% is old-fashioned, and I'm still learning the social media part.
Because it's one of those things that, for, collectibles on SI, like I write articles on all the shows I go to. I'm going to write one for this and everything. And it's not so much getting all the views right when it happens. It's when people start searching for this show down the road. What are they going to, when they hit the search bar, what's going to happen? Boom, the article's going to be there. Same thing with the videos. That algorithm, it does get crazy, but when people start searching, like, I think I want to go to Shipshawana, let me look it up. And all of a sudden they see all the videos from everyone that's coming there. You guys talked about it. People are all shooting videos here, for their own channels and stuff. It's free advertising for you guys, 100%. But one of the coolest things that I've seen here is me and Greeny had to go get some stuff. We popped in the car in his vehicle to go drive there. And as soon as the radio turned on, the advertisement, the commercial for this show was on the radio. I could hear it. He was like, look, listen, like they're talking about the show. Like a little kid in the candy store. I mean, that's got to feel great, doesn't it?
It is, and I'll let Jeremy talk more about it, but Jeremy's dad and my dad have been in radio probably since radio was invented. They don't like to understand how old they are, but that many years of radio advertising tells you that it works. And I mean, Jeremy, that's his job day to day is radio.
So that's a bit of our cheat code where I just coincidentally happen to be a third generation media member in this town, in this area. Levine has been in media for 88 consecutive years in Cleveland, Ohio. And so this partnership works in our case because Greeny lives in this world, buying and selling and working with dealers every day and has a portfolio of events. And I get to work on the production side and the media side, which in the day job is radio and streaming media and production. So, and promotions for that matter, and so it works. So we're able to kind of navigate this. I don't want to say he's unlike every promoter, but he's different in the way that he uses media throughout the year, and there's a plan and a structure, and all the elements kind of work together. So you have the shows themselves is the foundational piece of touching and feeling in the marketplace, and then you've got the social media aspect of that and the eBay Live aspect of that. And then there's the NIL card division, and all of this kind of works holistically to feed everything that's going on to continue to promote. And then it's amplified by the radio campaign, and radio is still the number one reach in the U.S. And so we're able to lean into that. We're able to lean into relationships and having talent out at these shows and being able to make those asks. And it is really cool when you work on those ads and you write copy and you get this culmination of an event. And you flip on the radio and you hear it out in the field. That's the essence of what's happening here. And so when you have a cohesive plan, it doesn't always work, but best plans in marketing is you have that multi-tiered approach. You're using your social media, your influencers, your content, you're getting that out there. You're using different platforms for mass reach. And then, as Brad said, it still comes down to the basics of a flyer and putting flyers out at tables. And so when you do all of that, and then you present content that hopefully people connect with, and everybody in this room does well this weekend, and all the stakeholders that we talk about, you just get to do it again and amplify it even more.
Yeah, and it says a lot. I have the sheet here, talking about all the partners we have, the media partners, right? I'm just going to read off these. You can tell the broadness just by hearing these names, right? The Big Blue Rock, the Big Play Network, ESPN Cleveland, right? Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, Shelby the Godcast, and Here We Go Brownies podcast. Yeah, it covers a good bit of Cleveland, the whole area and stuff, and it shows the partnerships that you guys are doing in that aspect of advertising and stuff. It's really cool to see, actually, right? So, wrapping this up and everything, let's go one by one. Is there anything extra you guys should, think out there that they should know about, card show wise? Jeremy, we can start with you.
What they should know about this show or shows in general?
In general, for
I think if you do it right, the proverbial you, and the one thing is it takes a village. Like this isn't just Greeny and I, and in Brad's case, it's not just his show. There are a lot of people that work on these events, and that you have to lean into those relationships and partnerships and production and staff and pulling it all together. So the first thing is how many people are really involved to make something like this happen. And the second piece of it is if everybody does it right and does their job, it's not noticed. And that's probably the biggest compliment. If people are complaining or they're calling out things or you need to do this or you should do that better, you've missed something along the way. Or it's also an opportunity to address something that needs to be fixed. But if we've done all those things we've talked about, we've addressed the security, the parking, the venue, making it comfortable for people to come in, the wide aisles, putting the tables in the right place, being thoughtful about how all of this interconnects, it should feel seamless and it should go unnoticed. And that's the biggest compliment, when everybody just comes out, they have a good time, there's commerce taking place, and if you're a sponsor, a vendor, an attendee, a participant, a resident, and you walk away feeling good about that experience, then that's the biggest compliment we can have.
Brad, do you have anything to add, before we finish?
Yeah, no, it's a little off topic, but just these are meant to be fun. Card shows are meant to be fun. Sometimes, I respect that a lot of people make their living, whether they're putting on the show. There's a lot of people out here that are full-time dealers, so you need to make sure that these are ran at a high level, as level as you can do it. But just remember the fun piece. If these are just event to events and you don't enjoy the cards, enjoy the people, I think that's what makes the environment, is if you're willing to just have it be a fun place where people can come and enjoy an amazing hobby. I think that gets lost too often in what we do. It's supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to touch on that, and nothing beats face-to-face interaction, buying and selling cards or trading cards, whatever process you do. And if we can put together an environment where people are comfortable and they make their transactions, they walk away thinking, man, that was really cool, then we're happy.
Yeah. So, it's great being able to be up here with you guys, bringing me on here. Alex, Army ATC 22. Hey, your guys' slogan, great cards, great location, great show, 100%. And so far, this show, it's on a Friday, it's busy. I love it. So again, thank you guys for sitting down and talking about this, and can't wait for the next one.
Catch you later.